Okay, here's a piezoelectric transducer at the end of the balance. Here's a laser beam and pivot mechanism. Another look at it. Okay, here's my experiment to test the propulsion of the piezoelectric unit. Here is the piezoelectric transducer. I have the laser mounted on top up here, so I can look at the as the thing cantilevers. As it tilts back and forth, I can watch it. I guess that's it for that. Today is April 13th. And basically here's my power unit down here. The frequency is 112 kilohertz. Each of these piezoelectric units have many resonances, and it appears that each one has a high Q on different resonances. This one happens to have a high Q on this one in particular. I tuned it to a strong resonance before I stuck it up on the balance. And this one seems to be behaving pretty well at about 30 volts. Okay, I have my ultrasonic transducer on my balance, and you can see the laser beam pointed at the black tape down there. I have a ruler off to the side so you can see how many inches up and down it's moving. It's about probably about 12 feet away from the apparatus, and it's pretty much stationary. Now I'm going to turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Now this is at 30 volts, and I'll just let it oscillate for a while. You can see that it tends to oscillate pretty well. And now I'll stop it from oscillating by running it out of phase. Off, turn it on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And now I've brought it back to rest by applying force exactly out of phase to the original oscillation. This is definite proof that you can use the ultrasonic transducers as propulsion systems or propulsion engines. Okay, now we'll try, instead of at 30 volts, we'll double the voltage at 60. If I go much higher than that, I'll smoke the transducer. Okay, so we're basically at a rest state right now. I'll turn it on, and that's a steady state right there. Just steady state on. You can definitely see that the spot moved. It's oscillating above a much higher equilibrium than it was before. I'll let it die down for a little bit. Okay. Now I'll turn it off. See how hot that got. Okay, the transducer got kind of warm after that continuous on there. Okay, we'll stop it from oscillating. Okay, for my second set of experiments, I've now mounted the piezoelectric transducer on the top of the balance to see if the force is applied in the opposite direction. Now, actually, since I've been running it, the resonance has changed a little bit. Now it's about 128 kilohertz. Okay, now the piezoelectric transducer is mounted on the top of the balance. So what I predict is that when I turn it on, it should apply a force downward. We should try to force the spot down. Right now the spot's at equilibrium. I'm going to turn her on, off, 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 on. So definitely it's producing a force, a repulsive force that tends to push the scales down. Further proof that the piezoelectric transistors, or actually sound, can be used to propel a vehicle through air. So in conclusion, the repulsive resonance of the pillbox cavity can actually be used as a propulsion mechanism to propel ships through air, and it's a further confirmation that of what Keely actually said was probably true, because Keely was reported to have built a ship using several different pillbox resonators that flew very rapidly through the air.
The Royal Group and the Great Royal Group, a collective term for the ruling elite, is believed to be split into two factions, the secular faction and the divine authority faction. Both factions originate from the same influential lineage, but they have engaged in conflicts over the control and dissemination of scientific advancements. In the mid-19th to mid-20th century, these rulers allegedly gathered their knowledge into a vast library, preserving powerful technologies for their exclusive use. The Old Cincinnati Library, which stood from 1874 to 1955, has been suggested as a possible location where these records were stored before being demolished to erase traces of suppressed knowledge. During this period, the world seemed poised for an era of unprecedented technological progress. However, according to certain theories, the ruling factions decided to keep the most advanced energy discoveries hidden, ensuring that control over power and resources remained in their hands. This resulted in two divergent schools of science: the publicly accepted orthodox science and the restricted, esoteric knowledge that remained under the guardianship of the elite. The suppressed legacy of John Keely. One of the most controversial figures in the history of free energy is John Keely. In the late 19th century, Keely claimed to have developed a machine that could harness and amplify etheric energy, a concept that defied conventional physics. However, Keely faced accusations of fraud, and his technology was never commercialized. Some sources assert that he was merely a charlatan, while others argue that he and his family were victims of suppression, deliberately silenced to prevent the widespread adoption of free energy. Interestingly, Keely's work bears striking similarities to later developments by John Bedini, another pioneer in alternative energy systems. Bedini's technology, which involved the manipulation of electromagnetic fields to achieve over-unity energy generation, suggests a direct lineage to Keely's suppressed inventions. The similarities between the two figures imply that they were working from the same hidden knowledge base, likely controlled by the Royal Group. The hidden war of energy technologies. The struggle over energy technology is not just a scientific debate, it is a geopolitical and economic war waged in secrecy. The ruling factions of the Royal Society have been accused of managing global technological progress, allowing only incremental advancements that align with their interests. If free energy systems were to be publicly available, it would dismantle the economic foundations built on fossil fuels and centralized power grids, thereby threatening the existing world order. While mainstream science dismisses many of these claims as pseudoscience, proponents of free energy argue that the evidence of suppression is overwhelming. The destruction of historical sites, the unexplained disappearances of visionary inventors, and the consistent pattern of discrediting revolutionary discoveries all point toward a deliberate effort to control energy access.